welcome back to the Beach Bum Bookworm. I am Tiffany. I'm so glad you all found me again today. My channel is all about cozy mysteries and romance books, and today I'm talking about my September wrap-up. So all the cozies that I read in the month of September. Normally I do these at the very beginning of the month, but I was sick last week and I didn't have a voice. So lucky for you, I'm feeling better and I'm back. So let's jump in. Again, these are the cozy mysteries I read in September in 3, 2, 1, go! So the first book I read was Granny Undercover right here. This is number 2 in the Secret Granny series by Harper Lynn. So our main character, Barb, is a retired CIA operative, and she moves to this small town to be near her son and her grandson, and she's bored because she led such an exciting life. And she kind of injects herself, she injects herself into all these investigations. So in this one, Barb is trying to garden. Like, she thinks that this is something that normal older grandmothers would do. So she decides she's going to garden. She's at the gardening store and she hears these 2 ladies talking about the president of the garden club or something like that is dead. And they're saying that it was an accident and that he almost beheaded himself with a pair of hedge clippers, like decapitated himself. And Barb's like, I don't think that's how it works. So she's going to investigate. Really enjoyed it. 3 cups of coffee. It's a very short read. I did it on audio. They're usually in between like 3 and 4 hours, so you can get them done lickety split, especially if you're listening at a little faster of a speed. And they're very, very fun. Next up, I read Sugar and Ice right here. This is the 6th book in the Cupcake Bakery Mystery Series by Jen McKinley. In this one, Mel and Angie are going to make cupcakes for this beauty pageant, which is so not their thing, but it'll be good publicity for fairy tale cupcakes, so they decide to do it. They have a friend in the competition named Lupe, and there's this judge that has kind of been all over Lupe, trying to push her out of the competition, and he ends up dead. So then, of course, Lupe is the number 1 suspect, and Mel and Angie know that that's not true, and so they're going to investigate. 4 cups of coffee, really enjoyed it. I've enjoyed every book in this series. It was no surprise. Very, very good. Next up, I read Granny Strikes Back right here. This is number 3 in the Secret Granny series, part of my SAS list, so you'll see a lot of these. This was my favorite of the series that I've read so far as I'm talking about it. So I gave this 4.5 cups of coffee. So Barb in this one, an assassin breaks into her home and tries to kill her. She obviously throttles that, and she thinks it's linked to this casino that she shut down. So she knows that these kind of underground casinos just move. Like, when they get caught, they just kind of move their operation. They did. So she's going to go undercover in this new operation to figure out who in that operation wants her dead. The way she dresses up and the character that she portrays to be undercover is so funny. Loved this book. Again, it was probably my favorite that I had read up until that point. Really, really enjoyed it. So the next book is The Spook in the Stacks right here. This is the 4th in the Lighthouse Library series by Eva Gates, also on my SAS list. This was Halloween themed, so you know I love that. In this one, there is a rich guy who is donating some historical documents. He ends up dead, and Lucy's trying to figure out what is going on. Meanwhile, there's all these spooky things going on in the library. There's like a horse that appears, and lights are flickering, and all sorts of crazy stuff. And Lucy is starting to believe, what is her name? The one that's always trying to convince her that the library is haunted so that she can have Lucy's job. She's like, is the library haunted? Because all this crazy stuff's going on. So she's trying to figure out the murder. She's also trying to figure out what is going on with that. Really, really enjoyed it. Gave it 4 cups of coffee. Next up, I read Dead and Buried right here. This is the 3rd book in the Cranberry Cove mystery series by Peg Cochran. So in this one, it is time to pollinate the cranberry farm. So Jeff, which is the main character's brother, calls in some beekeepers, and the beekeeper's assistant, Lori, ends up dead, and they think that she got stung and had an allergic reaction, but did she? 3.5 cups of coffee. Really, really enjoyed that one. Next up, I read Granny Bears It All right here. This is number 4 in the Secret Granny series by Harper Lynn. So in this one, Barb sees a hit and run like right in front of her, and she knows it wasn't an accident. The person that was killed was part of a nudist colony, and here in this little small town that Barb thinks is so boring, there's this nudist colony. So she's going to join the colony to figure out more about the victim. It's pretty funny. It wasn't like my favorite of the series, but I gave it 3 cups of coffee and really enjoyed it. Next up, I read A Brew to Kill right here. This is the 11th book in the Coffee House Mystery Series by Cleo Coyle. I really enjoyed this series. And this one, Claire's friend is hit in a hit and run and killed, and she sees it. She doesn't believe it's an accident, and she wants to figure out what happened. There's also another aspect of this book that brings a lot of mayhem, which is Mateo's been out buying coffee, which is his job, but he brings back coffee from I don't remember where, and it's not coffee, it's drugs. So a lot happens with that. Really enjoyed this one. It was action-packed, a lot of fun. I gave it 4 cups of coffee. Get it? Coffee house. Yeah. I rate all my cozies and coffee, but it's still fun. The next one is Granny Goes to Hollywood right here. This is number 5 in the Secret Granny series. And in this one, a Hollywood star and film production comes to film something in Cheerville. And the whole town is, there's stars coming, this and that. And a stunt double is killed on the set. And Barb thinks that he wasn't the intended target, but the star, not the stunt double. So she infiltrates the movie set to try to figure out what's going on. It was a lot of fun. I gave this one 3.5 cups of coffee. I really enjoyed it. Next up, I read Something Red, Something Dead right here, book 5 in the Lighthouse Library series by Eva Gates. It is finally time for Josie and Jake's wedding. And Josie's grandmother comes to town and she's like, your wedding's too simple. It needs to be bigger. It needs to be grander. And she tries to kind of take over. And she is having Josie's cousins help plan the wedding. And one of her cousins, Maribel, is kind of coming on to Jake in a, offhand way. And then she ends up dead after eating some gluten-free goodies that Josie had made just for her because she's gluten-free and needs, a particular diet. And so all eyes are on Josie for being the prime suspect. So good. Really enjoyed this one. I gave it 4.5 cups of coffee. It was a great installment. The next one, I can't say enough about. This was the first book in the Misfortune series. The book is called Louisiana Long Shot right here. This is my favorite read of 2021 by far, at least so far. So our main character, Fortune, is a CIA agent, and she has killed one too many people and one too many kind of overstepping her bounds and killing people, and now someone has put a hit out on her, and so she has to go undercover, so to speak, and her, somebody in the CIA arranges for her to be his niece, and he sends his niece to Europe. So she has taken this identity, and the niece is like this librarian, and she's a beauty queen, and just not at all. Fortune's very just not into those things, and she has to try to fit in, and oh my goodness, is it fun. The characters, not just Fortune, but she meets these 2 ladies, Gerda and Ida May, and they are part of the Sinful Ladies Society because the town is called Sinful, Louisiana. And like this society, you have to have been widowed for 10 years to even be a member, and everything about the town, everything about the cozy is exactly what I wanted. There's competitions between the Baptist church and the Catholic church to get to the only diner in town to get all the banana pudding after church. And there's all these crazy laws, and oh my, it's just so fun. I gave it 6 cups coffee, 7 cups coffee, somewhere in there. I don't know, but more than 5. Absolutely loved it. Favorite book of the year. This is by Jana DeLeon. I'm reading number 2 now, and it is fabulous. Next up is Dark Chocolate Demise right here. This is book 7 in the Cupcake Bakery series by Jen McKinley. And this one, there's a zombie walk, and someone, at first we think it's Angie, ends up dead, and we're like all freaking out. I'm like, there's no way that they did this. But I will tell you, my heart was pounding a little. I was like, but it was somebody else. But Mel still feels like she has to figure out what's going on because she's not sure that the person killed wasn't supposed to be Angie. There is a lot going on with Joe, which is Mel's boyfriend and Angie's brother. He is a prosecutor, and he's been working on this dangerous case. So she's just not sure that Angie wasn't meant to be the target. 4 cups of coffee. I really enjoyed it. Next up, I read Granny Gets Fancy right here. This is number 6 in the Secret Granny series by Harper Lynn. And Barb attends a charity function with her boyfriend, Octavian, and a man is stabbed in the bathroom. And of course, Barb is going to get in on the action and figure out what is going on. I gave this one 3 cups of coffee. It was a good solid read, but it wasn't one of my favorites of that series. Next up, I read the Diva Frosted Cupcake right here. This is number 7 in the Domestic Diva series by Krista Davis. So in this one, there is going to be a animal fundraiser. It's called Cupcakes and Pupcakes. So there is 2 local bakeries in town. They get into a cupcake war. They actually were partners, and then they split up. And one of the employees from one of the bakeries ends up dead, and Sophie has to figure out what is going on. This one I gave 3 cups of coffee to. It wasn't my favorite in the series, but it was a good solid read, and I enjoyed it. Next up, I read Buried at Sea right here. This is the 4th book in the Cranberry Cove series. So in this one, Monica and Greg get married, and during the celebration, an old college friend of Monica's is there, and her obnoxious husband. Her obnoxious husband is hated by the many, which means he ended up, in this book, he is found on a boat, stabbed to death, and Monica has to figure out what's going on in the middle of her wedding. 4 cups of coffee, really enjoyed it. I love this series. Next up, I read Read and Buried right here. This is the 6th book in the Lighthouse Library series by Eva Gates. So in this one, there's some repair work being done to the Lighthouse Library's foundation, and they find this Civil War era box and diary, and there's a whole bunch of groups fighting over it, including a historical society, and one of the members of the historical society ends up murdered, and there we go. There's also some somebody, assuming the killer, also stole some of the documents from the box. So we have that mystery too. Enjoyed it. Gave it 3 cups of coffee. I really like that series in general. Next up, I read Vanilla Bean right here. This is the 8th book in the Jen McKinley series. So in this one, they're trying to convince Mel. So Tate and Angie are trying to convince Mel to franchise Fairy Tale Cupcakes. And they go to Vegas to meet this person who might want to franchise their store. And a lot of stuff starts happening. And again, Mel's not convinced whether it's not to do with Joe in the case he's still working on, but also the lady that they're going to see in Vegas who might take over or franchise the store is a Vegas showgirl, and she is being stalked. So there's a lot of mystery going on there. Then there is an explosion, and a lawyer ends up dead, and all sorts of stuff happened. Really, really, really enjoyed this installment. I gave it 4.5 cups of coffee. So next up, I read The Diva Wraps It Up right here. This is the 8th book in the Domestic Diva series by Krista Davis. It is a holiday read, and all sorts of crazy stuff is happening. Her neighbor falls trying to decorate, put Christmas decorations up off the ladder, and Natasha is all upset that people are trying to copy her. And then just there's so much going on, and a murder ensues, of course, and Sophie has to figure out what is going on. I gave it 4 cups of coffee, but it probably should be a 3 cup of coffee read, but I bumped it up to 4 because it's Christmas and I love holiday cozies. Next up, I read Murder in Christmas River right here. This is the 1st book in the Christmas River series by Meg Muldoon. So in this one, there's a gingerbread competition, and she finds a body outside of her pie shop. The main character's name is Cinnamon, It was really cute. I gave it 3 cups of coffee, but I am going to continue the series. But I thought it would be a lot more cozy and Christmassy than it really is. And that's okay that it's not. That's just what I had in my head. So I will be giving it another shot. I don't know if I gave it a fair advantage. So the next book I read was called Chocolate a la Murder, right here. This is the 4th book in the Perfectly Proper Paranormal Museum. I love the title, by Kristen Weiss. This is also on my SAS list. So in this one, the wine and chocolate days are going on, and Maddie visits this chocolate shop that's in town, and she finds the owner of the chocolate shop dead, covered in melted cocoa. I gave this 4 cups of coffee. Really, really enjoyed it. I really love this series. It's right on the brink of paranormal and what I love. So it is so much fun. Next up is Stabbed in the Baklava right here. This was number 2 in the Kebab Kitchen series by Tina Kashian. And this one, they are catering a wedding. So Lucy is catering a wedding. Her family owns a Mediterranean restaurant. And the best man ends up stabbed. And Lucy has to figure out what's going on because Azad, which is Lucy's ex-boyfriend and chef at the restaurant, is the number 1 suspect. I gave it 4 cups of coffee. Really enjoyed it. Next up, I read Holiday Buzz. This is the 12th book in the Coffee House series by Clea Coyle. And in this one, it is a Christmas book, and they are having a cookie swap. Claire is making the coffee and all the drink beverages, goodies, and she finds a body of one of the baking assistants. 4 cups of coffee, really. So next up, I read Murder on Cape Cod right here. This is the first book in the Cozy Capers book Cozy Mystery series by Maddie Day. And the main character, Mac, owns a bicycle shop, and she finds a body, and she is the main suspect because she'd been seen with the person that the victim, Jake, I think, a little bit before he was killed. And the weapon that killed him is her brother's knife. So she's the number 1 suspect. There's some stuff going on with her brother. It is really good. I really enjoyed this opening to a new series. Loved it, loved it, loved it. I gave it 4 cups of coffee. So the next book I read was Grilled for Murder right here. This is the 2nd book in the Country Store Mystery series by Maddie Day. And in this one, takes place in Southlake, Indiana. Our main character is Robbie. She owns a country store and diner. It is called Pans and Pancakes. And there's going to be a homecoming party, and a local lawyer named Jim's sister-in-law is coming into town. His brother is now deceased, so she is a widow, and she comes in, and instead of being like this grief-stricken widow, she's flirty and, just all kind of just doesn't seem right. She ends up dead, and Robbie's friend that was closing up after the party and cleaned up after the party ends up as the prime suspect. So Robbie has to figure out what is going on. I gave this one 3 cups of coffee. So the next book I read was Meet Your Baker right here. This is the first book in the Bake Shop series by Ellie Alexander. And in this one, our main character, Juliet Montague Capshaw, that's hilarious. Great name. She was working on a cruise ship with her husband, Carlos, and she finds out this secret about Carlos, and she was like, how could my husband keep this from me? So she decides she needs a break and to kind of reevaluate their relationship, and she goes home to Ashland, Oregon, at her family, to work in her family's bakery, which is Tort. Ashland, Oregon is the home to the Shakespeare Festival, and the Shakespeare Festival is happening then, and so a lot of tourists are coming into town, and one of the festival's board members ends up dead. Now, Nancy wasn't the victim. Nancy wasn't liked by a whole lot of people, which is no surprise. And so Jules is trying to figure out what the heck is going on. 5 cups of coffee. I loved it. So good. I love Lance. I love it. It was so, so good. The characters, everything. So next up, I read Biscuits and Slashed Browns right here. This is the 4th book in the Country Store Mystery series by Maddie Day. And in this one, Robbie is going to have a breakfast-themed cook-off at Pans and Pancakes, which is her store. And there is a professor there, and he is getting into it with everybody, kind of he's just not liked. He ends up dead. Somebody else goes missing. There's a lot in this one. I gave it 3 cups of coffee. I enjoy this series. It's a good solid read. So next up, I read Carmel Crush right here. This is the 9th book in the Cupcake Bakery mystery series by Jen McKinley. So in this one, her old college roommate comes into town, and Mel feels like she owes this lady. This woman saved her from this situation in college, and so she feels in debt to Diane, which was the college roommate. And Diane she was not a lovely person, but she wants her to send cupcakes as a breakup to her fiance. Well, Mel takes the cupcakes to deliver them. She's not thrilled with this assignment, but again, she feels indebted to her. And Diane wants her to feel that way. So she goes to drop off these cupcakes with this fiance, and she instead finds him dead. And so Mel is trying to figure out what is going on. There was something in this that you find out at the end that just made Diane even more of a horrible character. And I'm like, why didn't she go? Just saying. I gave this 3 cups of coffee. So next up, I read A Batter of Life and Death. Another great title. Y'all know I love the titles. It is the 2nd book in the Bake Shop mystery series by Ellie Alexander. So in this one, it's the fall, y'all, which is, of course, the best time of year. I said it. This takes place in Ashland, Oregon. I mentioned that. So Jules works for her family's bakery, Tort, and she is going to be a part of this competition on this pastry baking channel. And there is a huge cash prize. And of course, people start dying. And Jules is trying to figure out what is going on. I gave this 5 stars, 5 cups of coffee. It was so good. I am really, really loving that series. So next up, I read On Thin Icing, which is number 3 in the Ellie Alexander Bake Shop Mystery Series. So in this one, we're in the winter. We were just fall. So now we're in the winter, and Jules is going to host this retreat for the Oregon Shakespeare Festival in the off season. And she finds a body in the freezer. So there was this bartender, and he's a womanizer, and he's a legendary flirt. He's got a temper, so everybody wants him dead. Of course, suspects galore. 5 cups of coffee, loved it. Next up, I read Scene of the Climb right here. This is the 1st book in the Pacific Northwest series by Kate Dyer Seeley, who is Ellie Alexander. And in this one, it takes place in Portland, Oregon. And our main character, Meg, she's just graduated from journalism school, or she's trying to find a job in journalism. And she takes this job at this extreme sports place, and she knows nothing about it, but she kind of lies her way into it. And so in the 1st book, she's got to do this hike up this huge to this huge ravine and everything, and she sees somebody being pushed off the ledge. And I really, really, really enjoyed this. I gave it 4 big cups of coffee. It kind of ends, I don't want to say a cliffhanger. I mean, not the actual story. We find out and wrap up who the killer is and all that. But there's this, I feel like, overarching story that it kind of ends where you're like, oh, the next book is going to be really interesting. So I can't wait to check that one out. So next up, I read A Second Chance at Murder. This is the 2nd book in the Love or Money series by Diana Orgain. So in the 1st one, our main character, Georgia, was on this reality show. She's a cop. She's a former cop. She was on this reality show. It's like a bachelorette spinoff. She has this new boyfriend. They did win, but they go through the money. The money is gone. And so they're asked to appear on this 2nd reality show, which is kind of a play off The Amazing Race. And so they go, and it's right as the show's starting, her boyfriend, Scott, is missing. He apparently, we find out a little bit later, he left an email with her dad, with Georgia's dad, saying that he had to leave and that he doesn't want to be with Georgia anymore, which is bizarre. On top of that, him being just gone, missing, Georgia thinks he's missing and not just left, we find a body. 4 cups of coffee. I really, really enjoyed it. So next up, I read For Whom the Bread Rolls right here. This is the second book in the Pancake House mystery series by Sarah Fox, who has some of the best titles in cozy mysteries, both of her series. They are amazing. And I am interviewing Sarah Fox a week from today. So excited about that. So in this one, our main character, Marley, is running the Flip Side, which is a pancake house. She has a cat named Flapjack, which is really cute. There is a local kind of somebody that everybody has a problem with. She's grouchy, she's mean, that sort of lady, Ida. And Ida ends up dead. And a lot of people think that she was blackmailing her, and Marley's trying to figure it out and piece it all together. 4 Cups of Coffee, loved it. Last book of the month is another Sarah Fox book. So it has another great title. It's An Ale of Two Cities right here. It is the second book in her literary pub series. I told you she had some great titles. So in this one, there's going to be a winter carnival, and within the winter carnival, there's going to be an ice sculpture contest. This takes place in a place called Shady Creek, Vermont. How cozy is that? Our main character, Sadie's employee, Mel, is going to be a part of the ice sculpture contest. And there's the chef that comes into town, a chef or something like that. I think it's a chef. And he's like, oh, I'm the greatest thing that walked the earth. And during a break in the contest, Mel, her employee that's taking part in the ice sculpture contest, her chisel or knife or something like that goes missing. And then the chef ends up dead. And the weapon is, of course, you guessed it, Mel's knife or chisel. I don't remember what it was called, but her tool. 4 Cups of Coffee, I absolutely loved it. I am enjoying both of these series, and I can't wait to talk with her next week. I hope you enjoyed listening to my wrap up. I read so many good books in September. Tell me what you read in September. And until next time, may all your future reads be 5 stars. Bye, everyone.